Welcome to the Imperfectly Empowered podcast with leading DIY lifestyle blogger ahnafulmer, where women are inspired with authentic stories and practical strategies to reclaim their hearts and homes by empowering transformation, one imperfect day at a time.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Imperfectly Empowered podcast. I am your host, ahnafulmer. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Tia Graham. Tia is the author of Be a Happy Leader, a highly sought after keynote speaker, and the founder of Arrive at Happy. If you don't feel happier already, just wait until you meet her. With multiple certifications in neuroscience, positive psychology, and leadership coaching, Tia has led global companies to success and now supports executives to boost profit and performance utilizing her evidence-based process that focuses on creating happy leaders. Featured on CNN, Forbes, Thrive Global, and Fast Company, welcome Certified Chief Happiness Officer, Tia Graham. Well, hey girl, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is like dual. You've got your book in the back. I've got your book in the back.
Love it. Love it.
I love
Happy
when I was
New Year.
What's that?
I said Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year to you. I am I can't remember. Well, we'll chat about this. I can't remember where you live now. It is 16 degrees here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So when we talk about being happy, warm weather would make me happier.
So I'm right there with you. I'm in British Columbia, Canada.
You are? Okay.
Yeah, Vancouver and Seattle. So there is tons of snow outside. It is snowing right now. It's cold. So yeah, I got a heater under my desk.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I have too. When I was first introduced to your book, I was like, this is marketing at its finest, because just the book in and of itself made me happy. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see, look how cute it is. I was happy just looking at the cover. That was well planned right there. Orange and in a smiley face. So listen, people are going to be happy just looking at this book.
Yes, you can make it a poster.
like you did.
Yes.
Fall off back there.
It's just getting out around the world. My launch date's on the 18th. So it feels so special that you have it already. And
I love it. I love the read. So first of all, let's start out talking. We'll dive into more about just the science of happiness and how you are specifically coaching people to enjoy life more. But tell us a little bit about your earlier years. You did that in the book, and share just a little bit of how you ended up where you are today and passionate about happiness and how it ultimately leads to just more success in life.
Yes. So, okay. How far back do you want me to go?
So I was born at 3 a.m.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'll tell a super, super quick, which is this story's in the book actually. So I was born and raised in Northern Canada, where it's really, really cold. And, the closest town was 45 minutes away. And, I won't tell the whole story, but after my parents went through a really, really tumultuous divorce and separation and several years of craziness and chaos, my dad was really, really unhappy during this time.
And you were how old? How old were you?
I was around this age. I was sort of age 10 through 12 when this was happening. I'm the oldest of 3 sisters. So I definitely knew what was going on. And it was, of course, sad and scary. And we moved, and then my mom moved out, and my dad really lost his light, lost his spark. And he'd always been a really happy human. And I thought that maybe that was my new dad, and which was a really terrifying thought. And one day on his birthday, he woke up, and I was the first one up, and, came downstairs, and he just had a different energy about him. He was making pancakes and I basically said, Dad, are you happy because it's your birthday? And he said to me, I've had 2 of the worst years of my entire life. And I woke up this morning and I said, I'm not going to have another bad year. And from that point on, I saw him choose happiness. I saw him make choices to increase his happiness. And so at a very impressionable age, I learned that happiness is a choice because I saw someone choose it right in front of me. Mm-hmm. And so that was the starting point of just, how I live my life. And throughout my life and career, I've made choices to either increase my happiness or get back to happy when I was having a really unhappy time. I had a career in the luxury hotel industry for 15 years. So I led sales and marketing teams in the Hawaiian Islands, in New York City. I lived in Istanbul, Turkey for a couple of years. And then I was in Los Angeles. And the catalyst to start my company, Arrive at Happy, was I went back to work after having my second daughter. And I'd always been a pretty positive, happy person. Went back to work after having my second daughter. So I had a 2-year-old and a 3.5-month-old, because you go back to work after 3 months in the US,
right.
Which is, in my opinion, human torture. So you're back.
Wait, Canada is when
people have a 1-year paid maternity leave
in Canada.
Yep.
Fascinating. Is that consistent with other countries, or is that unique
so
to
Europe?
Canada?
Yeah. So for Western Europe and yeah, a lot of developed countries. I think the United States has the shortest compared to any developed country that I've researched.
Fascinating.
And that leads to a lot of, I think that really, really hurts. It hurts families. It hurts children. That's a whole other topic.
Yeah,
but anyway,
seriously, that's a whole nother podcast. Tune in later.
So I'm back at work and really struggling. I'm full of work guilt, mom guilt. I'm angry. I'm stressed. I'm overwhelmed. I'm sad. I'm anxious, just exhausted and, so unhappy. And that's really was the catalyst to go on this journey and this quest. And I discovered the science of happiness and neuroscience and coaching, and I became a certified chief happiness officer. And I basically built Arrive at Happy on the side, and now, work with different companies and organizations and people. So yeah, that's high level, the story.
Yeah. So let's, just at the beginning, let's define happiness. So, because it's easy to hear something like this and think that happiness is just a smile, or, it's this constant sense of elation. Define happiness for people listening and watching.
Yes. So happiness to me is a commitment to joy and meaning in your life. And it's also accepting life's peaks and valleys. So I could elaborate a lot, but that's the definition and the essence of happiness to me.
And I think it's important to highlight, as you said, you could unpack that, but, I think from the get-go, and you do clarify this in your book, but, I think sometimes we misunderstand what it means to be happy, and social media does not help this any when we start to make these associations that frankly are just inaccurate. But, it is, for clarity purposes, it is not the absence of struggle. It is not the absence of imperfection or mistakes or those rough, raw realities that make up all of our lives, but it's more that choice in how you respond to those challenges. And so I just want to clarify that, because you do that in your book. And I don't want anyone to listen to the next 45 minutes and start getting the wrong perception of what happiness truly means. Yeah. I love in your book, you mentioned that you're a recovering perfectionist. And I think this speaks to so many of us who, are the personalities. It's funny, perfectionism, obviously this is called the Imperfectly Empowered podcast. And, my whole passion, whether it be, in the DIY world, whether it be with my fitness and nutrition clients, just in life, is this concept that imperfect progress is better than no progress at all. Like, you want to empower transformation, then you need to embrace imperfection. Like, the sooner that you can do that, the sooner you can get the life that you want. And so,
oh my gosh, when you imperfect progress gave me goosebumps. I just want to say yes, yes, yes.
Yes. And I think you're so relatable in the book, because for so many men too, but women especially, I think we associate this external appearance and how we portray ourselves to other people with this perfectionism. And then we internalize it as well. And we're like, well, if we didn't do X, Y, Z right, then we are just like we're not worthy, we're not enough.
We're so hard on ourselves.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit, just share with us a little bit about your journey through that place of recognizing that you're a perfectionist, living through the struggles that are involved with that mentality, and then kind of how you started to overcome or work through, I should say, recover.
I want to say, let go.
Yeah, let go. Great one. Great one.
Yes.
Let it go. We could break out into song now.
Yeah, exactly.
So proud.
Yeah. So I think it started off really with childhood. As I said, I'm the eldest of 3 daughters. On my father's side, I'm the eldest of 16 cousins. And so I think there was this persona. I know there was this persona and, achieving, wanting to impress my parents. Not that they were like, impress us, but, just that desire.
What Enneagram are you? Do you know?
I don't know what Enneagram I am. I need to do it. I actually have
yeah. You need to do it.
I need to do it. It's in my inbox.
Sorry,
I'm a Capricorn, so I think a lot of that, I don't know, comes from that.
Yeah.
Anyway, really when I started, I think getting more awareness of my strive for perfectionism was the general managers, because I always, as a director of sales and marketing, I always reported the GM of the hotel. And so in my one-on-one meetings, in my coaching with my leaders that I reported to, I would get feedback, not so much saying those exact words, like you are a perfectionist, but around this idea that, I would be working, I would get to the hotel at 8, I would stay till 9. I was literally trying to do everything, even outside of my scope. I was trying to help all areas of the hotel, and getting the feedback that, where it's sort of like, calm down. It's okay. Right. You don't need to try and do everything. Sometimes you're going to make mistakes, like that kind of feedback, which then I started having more self-awareness on, what am I trying to do? And, really the massive shift to let go of perfectionism was when I became a mom, and my working hours, all of a sudden where I could only work from 8:30 to 5 because I had to leave, go with my daughters. And so since I didn't have this expansive time to work on everything and do everything perfect, I started to be like, okay, good enough. And how freeing and amazing that, and I mean, I've still kept it. I'm like, yeah, good enough. Like I'm never letting go of that. I'm not. So that's the recovering piece.
And I think it's hard too, because there's an element of almost our identity is caught up in the perfectionism, because it's that sense of, well, if I settle at good enough, one, I'll never be great. One, I'll maybe never set myself apart from the rest. Or it's almost like we put ourselves into this place of, well, my identity, I will be valuable when I reach fill in the blank. And it's like in that pursuit, you lose who you are. It's like you actually never really achieve happiness or freedom, because you're constantly in pursuit of an unattainable goal.
What you just said, everyone should rewind and listen to it in the morning. What you just said is you're talking about external validation.
Yeah.
Right. You're talking about so that people will think, or that I will do, and all of that. And I want to say, just like you, and I'm sure listeners too, I do my best every day. I wake up and, I give it my all, whether it's marriage, parenting, exercise, friendships, family, work. I really try my best every single day. And sometimes I am great. Everyone's great sometimes.
Right.
But I think it's the awareness and the acceptance that you can't be great all the time. Right. And sometimes you have to say, oh, that was good enough. I'll try again tomorrow.
Right. Right. Well, and it's in that progress that you kind of do end up becoming great, because it's like you recognize in your mistakes that, well, that doesn't change my value. It's just simply, that's a learning curve, and I just need to grow in this area. But it's almost like you just kind of reestablish your baseline of what success actually looks like.
Right. And that your value isn't based on the success that you achieve, right? That your value as a human is so much more than that.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I loved reading. I'm all about research. I love research. I love when we can actually put like some science behind evidence as opposed to like the fads or something that someone came up with on a blog somewhere and we can't even like figure out, wait, where did this idea come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love how you talk about the science of happiness. Some of the research studies that you quoted were so interesting to me. And one of the things that I want our listeners and our viewers to pause is there is so much evidence. There is one specific predictor consistently that is directly correlated with one's reported happiness and satisfaction. And I want everyone to stop and think, whether you're by yourself, say it to yourself out loud or in your head, take a guess. What is the number one predictor of human happiness? There is something consistently in a person's life that the more they have of this, the more they report increased satisfaction and happiness. Take a guess, and I'm going to be willing to guess probably 60% of you are wrong. So I just want you to guess. All right. So Tia, tell us, according to the research, what is the number one predictor of human happiness?
So cross cultures, cross demographics, across ethnicities, around the globe, right? Over 7 billion of us.
Yeah.
Number one predictor of happiness is human connection.
Yeah.
So no wonder the pandemic has been so difficult for everyone. And by human connection, that means spending time with people that you care about and who care about you.
Right.
Spending time with people, and there's a two-way flow of care.
Yeah. People who meaningful relationships, basically the people who have reportedly more meaningful relationships in their life, the more they report being satisfied and generally happy. And it's interesting because you mentioned the pandemic, and I think this is absolutely one of the greatest struggles is I would argue even before that, I think just even in a technological age, we're losing that sense of true human connection. And I just think, I don't know how old your girls are, but like
they're 5 and 7.
5 and 7. Yeah. So mine are 9, 7, and 4, and we're adopting our 4th, but we don't have him yet. But the bottom line is, I just think our kids' generation, like as a parent, I'm constantly thinking like, okay, how can I encourage them to make connection in real life, like off of screens,
TikTok,
off of technology? And the science clearly supports that. Now I can tell my 7-year-old, look, the science says it, like that'll mean anything.
Yeah. And I mean, in a lot of ways, social media is so wonderful for staying connected with friends and family and people you care about. But if we all know it does a lot of harm. And for anyone that has not seen the Social Dilemma documentary on Netflix, watch it, especially if you're a parent. And you know, the Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, who I studied with, the Harvard happiness professor, showed us the research, the direct correlation between teenage depression and teenage suicide and social media. So we have to be really, really intentional. I know I am like, can I move to a town in Africa where there's no cell phones when my girls are teenagers, you know?
Amen.
It's very scary as a parent.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you know, it's also tough too when you're in a digital age where business and livelihoods truly in many ways depend on the internet. And it's
met on social media, right? You and I met.
Yes. I mean, I'm right there. You know, I moved from a brick and mortar job, like, you know, as brick and mortar as it gets in emergency medicine, you know, to now a virtual job. And one of the things that was the most life-changing was social media. I didn't have any. I had nothing 3 years ago. And you know, when people are like, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't follow you, I don't do social media, I'm like, bless you.
Yeah.
Good
You're
for
smart.
you. No, I'm like, look, if you really want to know what I'm up to, just head to the blog, but don't get social media. I mean, I don't think I'd have it either still.
Right.
So that's a real challenge. So when we talk about, you know, being a happy leader and just in general, being generally more satisfied with life, I do think we will have more and more struggles moving forward, just simply based on the science. So I'm taking kind of adding that takeaway for people listening and watching is just be very, very conscious that it is human connection that across the globe improve satisfaction and happiness. So if you think about it and you have very few true real life, go out for breakfast friends, then you need to get yourself some yesterday. And you need to take the time and get off of social media and find people in real life.
and find people in real life. And, if you're married or dating, like go on date nights and don't have your phone at the table. And spend time in nature with your kids, and connecting. And the happiest countries are in Scandinavia. I talk about that in Be a Happy Leader.
And those are cold, right?
They're freezing. And what do they do?
What in the world? What are they doing that makes them so happy?
They spend a lot of time. Well, they work a lot less. Healthcare, universities free. There's a lot of reasons why their well-being is they rate their well-being higher, but it's a lot of time with friends and family, and not just on the weekends. They'll have friend dinners Monday nights. They'll go ice skating Tuesdays. What do you do in, Finland? I don't know. It's cold things, but
cold things.
The point is they're spending time with friends and family 5 or 7 days a week.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're working less. That's interesting.
Yeah. They work about 37 hours weekly.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I still want warm weather.
Their productivity is higher than the US average productivity.
Yeah. Well, what's really fascinating, and I unfortunately cannot think of this is terrible to bring up research and not be able to cite it, but I saw a guy that did this study for his company. And the bottom line is he proved that as a CEO, paying for his employers to go on vacation, not just time off. So there was PTO, but then he actually offered, there were different packages that people could pick from. It was like a cruise, I'm sure he had he probably had it figured out in the business end, but they had to actually go on a trip and get away. That was part of the job requirement. And it was a really fascinating, and basically, he found that the productivity was higher, job satisfaction was greater, and ultimately his business did better. And I thought that's so fascinating. And especially as what you're saying there. So how do we implement that?
Investing in people, investing in well-being, travel. There's so much research of travel. You get happier before the trip, while you're planning, while you're thinking about it. And then there's a halo effect after.
It's interesting.
I always say spend money on experiences rather than material possessions. I love that.
Spend money on experiences rather than material possessions. That's great. Including trips. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, it was also interesting to read. So, human connection being the number one predictor of human happiness. I bet a lot of people may have considered money as part of that possible answer. And you address that. So there's another thing called, am I saying this right? The hedonic treadmill.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. This I also found very fascinating. I'm not incredibly surprised by it, but it was still an interesting thing that we've been able to show it in the research. So talk a little bit about the hedonic treadmill.
Yeah. I was super surprised when I read this too.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So this research is from Dr. Martin Seligman, who was sort of the father of positive psychology. He was the president of the American Psychology Association a couple of decades ago. And there's more research that's built on this. But basically what the hedonic treadmill says is that once you have a baseline of income and you are able to pay, how you have a place to live, you have food, you have some disposable income, you're not worrying about having your needs met. And this varies depending on where you live in the world. Right. So basically you have your needs met, that any increase in income, or for example, a large material possession, is going to give you a psychological, emotional high for about 3 or 4 months. So let's say, you live in an apartment, you have, friend, whatever, you have all your things, and you have a, Honda Civic, and you get a raise at work, and you're like, I'm gonna, upgrade. I totally don't know cars, so I shouldn't use a car example.
Girl, me neither. I'm like, Honda Civic sounds great.
Yeah. Honda Civic, let's just say, okay, I'm gonna, go up. I don't know, something a little flashier, right? You get more of a, which you perceive as like, oh, I upgraded my car,
whatever it is,
cool, What happens is that you feel happier. You have a boost for about 3 or 4 months. Mm-hmm. But then you go back to your resting level of happiness. So the research shows that these increases in material possessions and wealth, you can't build your life around, okay, I'm going to get all of these things and I'm going to be happy. because and that's many reasons on why, right? There has been some very new research that just came out 2020, and it does show that wealthier people are slightly happier than not wealthy people. But really, it's not necessarily because of the money they have or because their house is big and they have a pool and whatever. It's that wealthier people have more time affluence. And time affluence increases our happiness. Time to spend in nature, time for human connection, time for exercise, time for sleep. So it's not necessarily that, my bank account's bigger, so I'm happier. It's that wealthy people have more time.
And that's actually fascinating too, because I wonder what the threshold for the wealth is. Like, I wonder how they defined what that income level is to qualify as wealthy, because on the flip side, I would also argue one of the challenges is then there's probably like a middle ground, because as soon as you reach a certain level of wealth, in my experience, not my personal experience, but what I've observed is there seems to be this opposite reaction that happens. It's almost like the more wealth you accumulate, the less time you have, because you have so many more responsibilities in order to maintain that wealth. So I'm curious, that's just in my observation, but I'm curious, there's probably like this sweet middle ground. And again, depending on where you live, what your needs are, what's considered wealthy here.
How you live your life, right?
Exactly.
So of course, there's so many wealthy, famous people. Right. By the way, fame, there's a direct relation to unhappiness and fame, but
I believe.
Who are completely unhappy. Yeah. And I'm thinking if there's a really wealthy person whose life is full of meaning and purpose, and they are using their money and their influence to make the world or to help animals or to help the earth, they're going to be a lot happier than someone who's really wealthy, just trying to get wealthier and really sort of has this vacuum of meaning and purpose.
Yeah, well, to that point, the other fascinating thing that I found was the correlation between generosity and happiness.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting too, because it again speaks to that whole concept of it's actually more the experience of giving away and doing something for somebody else that improves happiness. And I think the beautiful thing about that is that, in my mind, has nothing to do with how much money you make.
No.
It's that idea of you live generously. In fact, in my experience, the people who give the most generously often tend to be the ones who have less.
Yeah.
Which is always so humbling to me. It's just like,
yes, I see that also.
Yeah. Yeah. And
yes.
A wealthy person can, say, multimillionaire, they can give $1 million to somebody, but the percentage of that money in correlation to what they make could be significantly less than somebody who gives $100. But when you look at their overall, the piece that is actually being taken out of their overall income, they're actually giving significantly more. So it's just a fascinating, live generously and you'll be happier.
Interesting correlation. And also with this, you think about, because I get asked all the time when I'm giving talks, well, isn't focusing so much on your own happiness, isn't that kind of selfish?
Yeah.
I get asked this on a regular basis. And I say, no, absolutely not, for a million reasons. Yeah. And one being that happier people are more generous to others, and the world needs more generosity, whether it's to animals, whether it's to Mother Nature or other humans. And also, when you focus on your happiness, you're inspiring and you're lifting other people up around you to do the same. So it's like this collective emotional contagion of lift and, giving to our children, giving to coworkers, giving to, all directions. And that when you're generous to people, they are happier, right? Because they're receiving, they're feeling kindness, and then you also get happiness. So it's just good all around.
Yeah. Well, it's that, again, I think it's that important clarifying point that it doesn't mean, in my opinion, happiness does not necessarily mean that you are ignoring harsh realities. It doesn't mean you're wearing rose-colored glasses. It means that you are proactively making choices to live in such a way that does inspire. It's like it gives somebody else a platform to inspire somebody else. Like, that's sort of, in my mind, where happiness is worth the investment.
Yeah.
It is. It's that contagious inspiration.
Yeah. And like you said, it's choices. And when life is really, really challenging, when we're going through those extremely difficult seasons, that's when we need the science of happiness and this research and these tools the most.
Yeah.
That's when you can have this toolbox and know that and I want people to know there are so many proven tools that have been researched at Yale and Harvard and Berkeley. And we know, that's the amazing thing. We know, it's not a mystery. So,
there's ways to actually use them.
There's ways to actually use them, and to know that so much of it is within your control. It takes work and effort. It's not easy. Just like exercise and healthy nutrition, it takes work and effort, but it's available for you.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break, but we come back. Stay tuned for a speed round of this or that with Tia. We're going to have a little fun, and we're going to hear more of her expert advice on how to improve your happiness. We're going to talk a little bit about her 8-step methodology. As she mentioned, there are tools, and this is definitely one of them. Right back here. All right. Right when we come back.
You have tried it all. Worried you will never lose the extra weight or reclaim the energy you once enjoyed? Want to achieve fat loss without spending hours in a gym or eliminating entire food groups from your diet? Well, now you can. In the virtual Faster Way to Fat Loss with Anna, my 6-week fitness and nutrition program, you will learn how to pair effective 30-minute workouts with all-natural, evidence-based nutritional strategies to leverage what you eat and when you eat to reset your metabolism and burn fat fast, even that stubborn belly fat. I am a dual certified nurse practitioner passionate about teaching sustainable strategies to promote fat loss and prevent disease. I have cheered on thousands of clients who have done just that with the Faster Way program. In my 6-week program, the average client currently sheds 7 inches of body fat. 93% report more energy, and 89% state that their mental health has improved. 100% of clients report they feel this program is sustainable. Curious to try the program but not sure if the strategies will work for you? Try the Faster Way strategies for free. Head to www.hammersandhugs.com and sign up for my free 7-day fat loss accelerator course today and start your own transformation story.
All right. Well, Tia, we're going to play a quick round of this or that. You have 2 options, not super stressful. Pick whatever comes to mind first. Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Cake or pie?
Pie.
What's your favorite pie?
Apple pie.
Ooh, okay. LA or New York?
Oh, tie. I can't pick.
Okay, tie is not an option. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Which would you rather live in, LA or New York?
LA.
Okay.
With kids.
With kids. Yeah. Oh, children. Would you rather live, Hawaii or Canada? You're in Canada, so this is sort of like a.
Yeah. To live?
Yeah.
Canada.
Okay. What about visit? If you had a friend, they were
Hawaii.
like, would you? Yeah.
Yeah. Visit Hawaii, especially if you've never been.
Amen. Oh, I love Hawaii.
Yeah.
It is so wonderful. Okay. Mountain or beach?
A mountain.
Okay. That's interesting. So would you rather hike or swim?
Hike, definitely.
Yeah, you guys are hikers. So Canada is a good fit for you. Yeah.
Yeah. The mountains, the mountains are like church to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned in your book that you started out in Canada, then you moved to Hawaii. And I love how you instantly were like, okay, clarification. I know this is a book about happiness, and it's easy to be happy when you live in Hawaii. I like that you instantly were like, all right, let's just get that over with and out of the way.
Yeah.
But you mentioned an interesting thing when you moved to Hawaii, how it wasn't just the weather. It wasn't just the sunshine. I'm reading this quote here, but you said when you have meaningful concordant goals that you are working towards, the journey itself toward those goals increase your happiness. And what I loved about that is, I've experienced that even just professionally. I felt I'm putting in more hours in my job actually now than I did when I worked in the emergency department. Yeah. And the stressors look different, but I genuinely feel more satisfied because there's this, like you said, a slightly more meaningful, concordant goal to what I'm truly passionate about in life, which is sharing people's stories and helping people understand this idea that take off the filter, embrace imperfection. Let's have real conversation. And just know that your story matters and you're loved. And I loved when you said that, because I was like, I can resonate with that, because that's been my story. So what would you say to somebody, who is struggling right now, as so many people are, with anxiety, with feeling of, what am I doing with my life? What do I want to do with my life? Depression. This is saying be a happy leader, but I can tell you right now, this is for anybody. There are so many good things in here for anybody to read. What's step number one? Maybe not literally in your 8-step methodology, but what's the first thing you tell somebody?
Yeah. So the very first thing I would tell someone is that you are a human being, and I give yourself permission to be a human being, and do not judge yourself and be hard on yourself that you're in a place of depression and you're feeling low and you're feeling anxious. There's so much going on. Of course you are. I mean, we are all collectively struggling together for many different reasons. And for someone who is in this place, and as you were just talking about, self-concordant goals, and really feeling like you're getting a lot from the journey, because life is about the journey. It's not about reaching this, I got this. And no, life is about the Monday mornings. Life is about the Thursday afternoons when your kid's screaming, or that is, what life is made up, or, the deadlines, or and all of that. And so the first step is giving yourself self-compassion, accepting where you are. And then I would say is finding support. So whether it be a therapist, I hired a coach when I was in that really low point with when my kids were little, could be a friend, could be someone in your religious community, but know that no one needs to go at it alone. And when you're in that low point, that having someone who has tools, who has support, that you can be vulnerable with, that you can be completely real and authentic with, to be a partner and to help you, and to know that, just remind yourself of life's, impermanence. Nothing lasts forever, that you will not be in this place forever. You're in it now.
Yeah. I love that. Just the sense of grace for the moment, and also not trying to skip the struggle. I think too often we either don't want to talk about it, or we just are so quick to want to skip over it.
Yes.
It's almost like that sense of, if you just allow yourself to sit there, not stay there, but sit there for a little bit and allow yourself to process it, it's just more likely to actually move forward in a productive, permanent way, as opposed to just skipping right over it. You're probably going to end up right back there, because you never actually dealt with it.
It's going to manifest in your physical body. The worst thing you can do is push it away and ignore it. So whether journaling, talking, with people, is that you're exactly right. You have to choose. You're not going to choose to stay there, hopefully, for 3 years. But if you're going through something, no, it might take several months,
right?
Depending on what that thing is. And even just having emotional granularity. So the more emotions, and there are over 150 different emotions that humans have. So even, the research shows, even if you just say out loud, I'm extremely anxious, or like Adam Grant's super popular TED Talk this year, languishing. Everyone is languishing. They're not depressed. They're not happy. Everyone's kind of in this mucky, muddy middle ground. I'm not flourishing, but I'm not depressed. I'm just sort of languishing. To just say that, tell people this is where I am, that alleviates it.
So it's the idea of communicating what you are actually feeling, which is tough for some people who don't even know what they're feeling. I think sometimes it's almost just I don't even know what I feel. So languishing is a good word. It's kind of listen, if you don't know how you feel and you're listening or watching this right now, you're languishing. I'm telling you right now. I am diagnosing you as languishing. That is your diagnosis. So you can just say that out loud. I'm languishing. But one of the other things that you talk about that I enjoyed, again, as a medical professional, I appreciated this example, but you gave an example of a resting heart rate with this idea of your resting level of happiness, or the happiness baseline. And, again, understand that I'm bringing up these things for those of you watching and listening, in bits and pieces. In Tia's book here, at the last several chapters, she goes through this 8-step method of practical ways that you can actionably just improve your happiness. So I'm taking bits and pieces from things, but understand there's a much more organized approach. It's in this book that you need to get. One of the things I'm pulling out here is this idea of your resting heart rate with your resting level of happiness, or the happiness baseline. Tell us a little bit about this concept of a resting happiness baseline and why it's important.
Yeah. So when I was learning from Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar and others, and, understanding the difference between pleasure spikes, which are great, not saying you shouldn't have pleasure, but the difference between these pleasure spikes and then actually improving your day in, day out well-being, your happiness baseline. And like you, I really love movement. I really love exercise, and physical health and movement is directly connected to happiness too. And of course, we all are connected to our heart, and, we know about our heartbeat. And so for myself, I was thinking of this analogy of, when you go for a sprint run, of course, your heartbeat goes faster, but then it goes back to your resting level, right? And when I teach people, and what I want to do with this book and my work is let people know that we can improve your baseline. That's what the science of happiness and neuroscience can do. You can actually make your day in, day out baseline stronger and better. And that your personality and how you move through life, of course, it's influenced by your genetic history. Our genetics play a part, right? That and our life circumstances, like living in a pandemic, of course, our life circumstances play a part. But so much of your well-being and your happiness is based on those daily choices. And if you use the daily choices based on positive psychology research, you can improve your baseline. And this is a lifelong process that, depending on what's going on, what changes in your life circumstances, that know that, you have a lot within your control. So that's really what that analogy is about.
Yeah. When I love that, it's this idea that, like, to use the idea of a resting heart rate, we see in medicine that runners, for example, somebody who's really fit, with great aerobic fitness, what they can do is they can do like a HIIT workout. So heart rate goes really, really high, it spikes. But because of their aerobic fitness and ultimately flexibility, they are able to quickly drop back down to their baseline. So there's sort of this flexibility. And what I interpreted as I'm reading that is this can go multiple ways. I think on the flip side, when you are going through a really difficult thing in your life, and maybe instead of a pleasure spike, we're now like the opposite, and we're feeling this discouragement. Like if you have that really healthy investment in that baseline, I also think there's more flexibility in your mindset. You're quicker to be able to reach this level of satisfaction again. And just like confidence, even kind of in where you're at.
You just gave me goosebumps again. Yes. So everyone has ups and downs. We all have them. So by using the science of happiness and understanding all this holistic approach, it's spiritual, physical, intellectual, your relationships, your emotions, all of it. Instead of having huge spikes potentially and massive lows, is that instead, just like a heartbeat, it's going to be more like this. So it's going to be less of a drop, and you will be in that low point for a shorter period of time. Yeah. And actually that's even more important than the pleasure spikes. You're exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. But it's that same concept. I've told my fitness nutrition clients this so many times in my program, is it's this idea of, I'm as passionate about the mindset change as I am the physical change, because I think they're directly correlated. And it's really very consistent with what you're talking about with the science of happiness. And it's this idea of learning to live with discipline, moderation, not the all or nothing mentality. It's like when you learn And the whole perfectionism conversation comes in here. And I think it's the same as the happiness baseline, but it's trying to really fight that mentality of all or nothing and the perfectionistic tendencies so many of us have that are really correlated to how people perceive us, but instead allowing for that discipline moderation so that those ups and downs are a lot more controlled and you're not, this crazy, whether it be physically, up and down, or even mentally or emotionally up and down.
And I'll say one thing about the exercise, which you made me think of, the beauty industry is obviously multi-billion, right?
Yes.
Humans forever have been, well, not forever, but for a very long time, have been obsessed with our outer appearance.
Right.
And people exercise because it's like, I want to look good.
Right.
And this flip of feeling good is so much more valuable than looking good. And by the way, side benefit, you will also look good. But really what you should care about, right, is the connection between feeling, because there's so much research for exercise and happiness for kids and adults. And so, it bursts new brain cells, like just that should be your inspiration and motivation for movement, not so you look good for the Instagram feed,
Absolutely. Well, and it's this whole idea, again, it's a perception and it's a perspective change. It's the idea that I'm all about body fat percentages, because to me, it's a much better reflection of your health, not the scale, not what you see in the mirror, et cetera. Let's get more physiological. Let's stop basing everything just on how we feel, because the lens through which we see ourselves is the lens through which we see the world. So, we want to make sure that it's accurate, and making it a little bit more scientific, a little less emotion-based. But it's exactly to your point. It's that idea that, some of the most beautiful, aesthetically pleasing people in the world are also some of the most insecure people I've ever met. I mean, some of the most beautiful, like objectively, aesthetically beautiful people feel incredibly insecure. And it's because their value, their whole lives, has been associated with how they look. So it's this concept of, well, it's easy for somebody to say if they're pretty. And I would argue, disagree. I think it can be just as challenging, because then you question, well, am I perceived to be good at something simply because I'm attractive? Right. So it's that whole idea that it is all about the lens through which you see the world. What do you perceive as valuable? When you look at other people, why are they valuable to you? Because they're attractive, or because they've been made in the image of God? Because the quicker that you can understand that is the quicker you will be able to also see yourself as valuable. So like you are infinitely valuable, period. You can't add to it. You can't detract to it. And it's exactly what you're saying. The sooner that you can come to that, that's when you can like establish that baseline of happiness, because it's no longer related to success or what you are or are not.
Achievement. Right.
Yes. What you are or are not doing. What is the number one thing, if you could say one thing that has made all the difference for you, if you could boil it down to the success of achieving happiness in your life, if you could boil it down to one word or one phrase, what would it be?
Gratitude.
Oh, yep. Great one.
For me, it's gratitude. I don't know if it's because I was raised in the middle of a forest and had no people around, and then I've had amazing opportunities to live and explore the world, that I have always been very aware. And this is before, like, everyone get a gratitude journal. Like I'm very aware that, oh my goodness, life is precious. And I've been in awe of the world and the people and just all of it, of how special it is. Like, what a gift that we woke up today and we're breathing and not taking anything for granted.
Amen. I love that.
That's what I say. It's just gratitude, and followed by awe, just being in awe of the world.
Yeah. It's that sense of living out of abundance. It's an abundance mentality. Yeah, I love that. Well, I want to end with, there's a section in your book that I'm reading from, and this is what Tia says. She says, "You are not stuck. Your choices matter, and the daily choices you make can increase your spiritual, physical, intellectual, relationship, and emotional well-being. It's not an option. You're responsible for creating a massive positive ripple effect, and I know you can do it." This is Tia Graham. This is her book. You definitely need to check it out. And your website is arriveathappy.com. Is that right?
Yes.
I always want to make sure. Where else can people find you? Where else should people look you up?
Yeah, so I'm super active on Instagram, trying to do positive social media, of course. So that's
Amen.
Arrive at Happy. And then also Tia Graham on LinkedIn. And I have a YouTube channel. I put out a video every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific. So that's Tia Graham, Arrive at Happy on YouTube.
I mean, it's hard not to smile because you just said happy like 6 times. What a great, but do people even understand there's like a legit certified, what is it? You're a certified
Chief Happiness Officer.
I laughed out loud on the airplane when I was on an airplane when I read that, and I was like, snap, what? I want to be a chief.
People are like, that's a real title. I'm like, yes, I got certified in Denmark. It's real.
I'm certified in Denmark. It's real. We're happy in Denmark.
Yeah.
Well, Tia, thank you so much. It's an honor chatting. I learned so much reading your book. It was inspiring and encouraging.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, it's been so wonderful talking to you. We're definitely aligned. And
yes.
Thank you for the message and the work and the help that you're putting out in the world.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I pray God's richest blessings over you and your family.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Imperfectly Empowered podcast. It is my honor to be here with you. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to click the subscribe button below so you don't miss a show, and leave a comment with your thoughts from today's episode below. If you are listening via your preferred podcasting platform, would you help keep us on the air by rating our show and leaving an honest review of your thoughts from today? In case you haven't heard it lately, your story matters and you are loved. This is your host, Ahnafulmer, and I will see you here next time on the Imperfectly Empowered podcast.